All right. Good morning, everybody. I'm Edward Frisch. I'm co-founder of PromoVet, and I'm very glad to be joining First Financial Bank this morning with our webinar and Pathway to Vet Practice Ownership. And I look forward to explaining the purpose of PromoVet to you and why we exist and how we exist and how we can help listeners to potential savings. Next slide, please. PromoVet was launched about 2 years ago with the purpose of lowering costs and discounts to independent veterinarians on leading pharmaceutical products. Usually, veterinary clinics can buy their products from wholesalers and manufacturers, and usually those clinics are paying what we refer to as wholesale or street prices. PromoVet, on the other hand, discounts everything we sell. Everything we stock is heavily discounted. The purpose there is to lower the clinic's acquisition cost, increase your margin, and of course, improve your bottom line on your balance sheet for your operation. We have a wonderful management team. I'm joined online this morning with Arthur Frisch, our CTO, and we're ready for the next slide. Our leadership team consists of Frank Matza, co-founder, myself, Edward Frisch, and Arthur Frisch as CTO. Our leadership team, between Frank and myself, have decades of wholesale pharmaceutical experience in the industry in both human and veterinary, so we truly do speak your language. Arthur Frisch has come aboard to help us improve our platform. You will find that PromoVet and our savings tool, the Hound, is easily enabled. It's an Amazon type of platform where you aim and click and order and receive your product within the next day or days. Next click, please. So here's how we create savings for our customer base. We're purchasing products in very high volume amounts, and the industry provides us to pass on these savings to the clinic via our discount pricing. So when you go on to promovet.vet, you'll see, as a registered user, you'll see the list prices and the discounts, anywhere from 5 to 30+% discounts on all products. We negotiate with all of our suppliers for these discounted prices, and we buy in long and deep. We also partner with other groups for sourcing, and everything that the clinic receives is always fresh dated. It is the same packaging that they get directly from their manufacturer or their primary wholesaler. Again, we are positioned to be an extension of the primary wholesaler. We don't stock every item in the world, but everything we do stock is heavily discounted. Next slide, please. We spoke briefly about technology. E-com is here for our business with the clinics, and promovet.vet is a wonderful platform to use visually, and your practice management and your ordering personnel will find it extremely easy to navigate, and we augment the platform online with continuous email campaigns. We announce price increases, special discounts, new products, and emerging information in the industry. Next slide, please. Here's an exciting part of our business, and we're just releasing this now, and we hope that all of our listeners latch on to the Savings Hound. And the Savings Hound is a tool, it's a browser extension tool that allows the user to ensure themselves of always paying the lowest price between what PromoVet has available to the customer and what they might be buying ordinarily from other suppliers. So once you install the browser extension and you are browsing the internet on your primary wholesaler, manufacturer, or alternate wholesaler sites, if you latch onto an item that we are also selling, you will see that Hound pop up on the right-hand side of your screen, and you'll see that there are savings available to you, and you'll be able to go into your shopping cart on promovet.vet and take advantage of our lower prices. Right now, we're available on Chrome and Edge, which is over 80% of the browsers out there. And pretty soon we will have more browser partners as well. And PromoVet feels it's very important for us to also have more than just discounted products, but also partnerships with reliable and well-known providers in the industry. From FFB, First Financial Bank, your primary lending associate and partner, to ADP, who can offer you discounted payroll programs through PromoVet, as well as Wedgwood Pharmacy, the country's leading compounding pharmacy, where you can obtain discounts with our partnership at PromoVet and Wedgwood. And we even offer merchant banking discounts through the CardWorks network, a leading merchant banking provider. If anyone is listening and has questions about our partnerships with Wedgwood, ADP, and CardWorks, please reach out to us at PromoVet. We'll be glad to explain to you how you can do your ordinary business, ordinary payroll, ordinary merchant banking, and compounding pharmacy purchases, but you will be obtaining discounts through your association with PromoVet.
Thank you very much, PromoVet team. PromoVet has been a great partner of ours. And, when we're looking at your financials, cash flow is something that's very important. And having something like PromoVet can definitely help with some of those expenses when it comes to ordering and whatnot. So fantastic partner. And we really appreciate them joining up with us for this webinar. But to continue on today's conversation, what we're going to talk about today is what's going on in the industry. What are we seeing? What are some of the things that are changing and whatnot, especially with this pandemic and everything still kind of lingering over us? What are we seeing in regards to that? What will you need to buy or start a pet hospital or even a pet resort? What kind of documents are we looking for? What should you be prepared for? We're going to look at the do's and don'ts of an acquisition. So again, stuff to look out for, things that you want to do before taking that leap and jumping into ownership or acquiring a second practice, whatever your situation is, and some don'ts. What do you want to avoid? What do you want to look out for? We're going to talk about the resources that are available to you when it comes to starting or acquiring a practice. And then we're going to go over the anatomy of a loan. I know that sometimes it can be a little bit confusing or look a little bit daunting when you're looking at the entirety of this process, but we're going to break it down and try to simplify it for you to make it as reduce some of the pain points if we can. All right. So what is going on in the vet world today? So when we're talking about compensation for vets, typically when we're looking at an associate veterinarian, their starting salary, or your starting salary, on average across the country is about $80,000 to $90,000. When you're looking at the compensation of an owner, those can be, exponentially higher, $380,000, and we're looking at growth need and employment growth projected at 18% over, nearly the next decade through 2028. And I'm sure that you guys have seen that as well. A need and openings for veterinarians. We're looking at total gross revenues on average for clinics at over $2.5 million, and a total gross revenue for each veterinarian at over $730,000. So we're seeing large practices out there and multi-doctor practices that are, experiencing fantastic growth. Some of the top new services that we're looking at, in previous years and beyond, more acupuncture and laser therapy, ultrasound, and with a lot of people bringing in new pets, behavior counseling has been a big one, as I'm sure you have seen some of these people that have adopted pandemic puppies, if you will, needing some help in their behavior and where to go with their training. So how have things changed in recent years? So one thing that we are seeing is that there's a ton of market growth, and it's expected to continue. as I'm sure, everybody on here has seen, that there's been a huge increase in pet adoptions. And with that comes a huge increase in the need for veterinary medicine. So, in the pandemic has caused a need for some shifting things in regards to how we practice. So increase in mobile veterinary facilities. We have seen a huge, huge increase in demand for, at-home care, or, anything that makes it easier for people to access veterinary medicine, or, with the pandemic, honestly, not have to leave their homes. So those mobile clinics have become, something that was, few and far between, to being a very popular way of practicing. Also, telehealth has become huge. In previous years, I would say, just speaking with some veterinarians, telehealth was something that was kind of given out for free. But in recent years, a lot of people have just gotten used to paying for such a service, with telemed becoming so popular. So, kind of monetizing those telehealth services and making that care accessible to people has, become a staple in veterinary medicine. One of the biggest differentiators between, practices is having those latest technologies. So when you're looking, at a market where there might be several different facilities, having, the newest tech and those laser therapies and whatnot, that can make a difference in where people are choosing to take their pets. And I'm sure I don't have to, tell anybody here, but, the term fur baby has become extremely popular, and a lot of people are looking at their pets as just an extension of their family, and as their children in a lot of cases. So having those latest and greatest offerings really can make a difference in that bottom line for a practice owner. So when looking at acquiring or growing a practice, what is the number one mistake that associates make? And the one that we see most often is fear. Fear of just kind of taking that leap. Fear that, oh, I already have so much debt. How am I going to take on more debt? Fear that, I'm making the wrong choice if I just stay as an associate. The rest becomes somebody else's problem. I can just practice. But, through our experience and through speaking with people who have gone through just what, you're looking at here, the number one change that they would make, and practice owners would have the ability to expand and have more room, or be able to have a bigger facility to treat more patients. Rarely do we hear that, I wish I would have never done it. So, there's nothing that is pandemic proof, or nothing that is foolproof when it comes to owning a business, but there's always going to be a need for veterinary medicine. So if fear is the one thing holding you back, definitely reevaluate that, because it is a great place. And if you look at people who have experience here, they really, their only regret is that they wish they would have gone bigger. On top of that, like I mentioned, those student loans and already having a lot of debt, and the fear of taking on more debt. Realistically, obviously, that is something, you should be cautious of. You don't just want to take on hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in debt without having a plan. But being a practice owner opens up so much more cash and cash flow and cash availability for you, that it is really a quicker way to get to financial freedom. So we're going to talk about that a little bit more in coming slides. But I just wanted to mention that here, that if that is a fear of yours and you're worried about that, just know that, having that additional cash flow and opening up more income for yourself can not only help you, you have an asset in your business, and you can help pay that off through the business, but also pay off your existing debts faster. So some keys to discuss about practice ownership and when looking at making an acquisition. One thing, buy at the right price, and try not to get emotional. I know that is very difficult. You find a practice that you really want, and you're dedicated to it, and it seems to check all your boxes. And then a corporate comes in and outbids you. Do not let the emotions get the best of you. There will be another practice, there will be another opportunity, and you will find the perfect one for you. Typically, when we're looking at purchasing practices, the most important piece of it is the cash flow. Can you pay back that debt, as well as pay yourself and pay your own debts and things of that nature? So when we look at valuing these practices and things like that, we're looking at multipliers of that cash flow. So typically, a good price would be, say, for example, 5 or so times. These corporations are coming in at 15, 16, sometimes even higher, and just outbidding you to the point where there is no additional cash. So again, don't get emotional if this should happen to you. The right practice will be out there. One thing, to definitely keep in mind, veterinary medicine is a people business, and having a good transition plan from one owner to the next and working on retaining as many clients as possible is essential to, your success in the beginning and beyond. So make sure to have a transition plan in place and have a way to keep those clients who may have been loyal to the previous owner. You need to find the right people. And I know that this is a big pain point for a lot of practices right now. There is a lack of, a shortage of veterinarians and good vet techs out there at the moment, but you want to train your employees, as it says here, so that they could leave, but create an environment so that they do not want to. So having the right employees and keeping them is, the best way to ensure that you are seamlessly growing your business. And then systems. You want to be able to replicate your success on the daily, whether you're there, whether it's somebody else managing, whatever the case is. You want to have systems in place to make sure that you're not leaving money on the table, wasting time, and making your day-to-day operations as smooth as possible. So from start to finish, this is what a loan looks like. So I will say that phase 6 through phase 8. So once you actually receive that approval for financing, this can take roughly 60 or so days, sometimes more. And a lot of this is dependent on the due diligence process after that approval letter. So whether or not we get appraisals back quickly, which has seemed to be the pain point here with the pandemic. But that can take roughly 60, maybe 75 days. The long part and the one that is more time consuming, honestly, is phase 1 through phase 6. So really finding that right practice and getting to the point where we go to loan committee to get you your approval. So we want to make sure that you're taking the time to find the right practice and paying the right amount for it as well. So I've seen this take anywhere from months up to years for people to, find the right fit. So don't get discouraged. Again, don't get emotional. Make sure you're taking your time, because really this is a decision, obviously, that's going to impact the rest of your life. And you don't want to just jump in on a whim or because of an emotion. You want to definitely take your time through that part of the process. So easy, right? This whole loan process and buying and everything should be pretty simple. Obviously, I'm kidding. And we always like to tell people who are looking into ownership, you have trained for years to be a clinician. You know what you're doing. You're an expert in your field. Let us be experts in ours. So you want to create a good team that knows what you might not. So for example, us as the banker, one that knows the veterinary business. We can look at your P&L or your balance sheet and we can see, maybe where areas of opportunity are or what is going right at this practice, what you should continue. So having somebody that knows that business is and able to analyze those financials to really help you. Hiring a consultant is great if, especially if you're just starting out, this is your first time owning, they can help you look at those values of the practice and really define those areas of opportunity and help you to grow the way you want to. And then also having a good accountant and lawyer that, again, knows this business and knows how to best help you. So when looking at valuing a practice, you have to figure out what it's worth. So, the simplest way possible to put it, the price is, what a seller is willing to accept for the business, what a buyer is willing to pay, and what we're willing to invest as a lender. So all of this is very dependent on that cash flow that we talked about. So It's, on the ability for it to generate a future return on investment. So you're going to have, a formal business evaluation done. But essentially, the practice has to be able to allow you to earn fair compensation. We want to make sure that you're getting paid as you should, has to be able to repay the debt. And when we look at it, we're also looking at a debt service margin. So what this means is that, should something happen and those revenues that you're expecting be a little bit lower or even significantly lower in some cases, you'll still be able to repay that debt. So what we're looking at and what we're looking for is for a debt service margin of 1.3 or better. So when performing evaluation, there are some things that we need to review and things that you really want as the buyer to be able to look at to evaluate whether this practice is worth it or not. So first and foremost, we need the year-to-date profit and loss and balance sheet. So this will show us how the business is performing currently, and then also what assets they have and liabilities. So, what assets will you be taking over, what liabilities are against those, and whatnot. We need 3 years of historical tax returns to see how the business has performed in recent years, and then also some transaction reports. Inventory, veterinary production reports. You want to see how those veterinarians are performing, whether they're meeting those averages of the industry, along with average doctor transactions. So you just want to make sure that we're falling in line with the numbers that can be expected for a practice type that you're looking at. Cost of goods sold versus the income, and also the growth. How many clients do they see a month? How many new ones are they getting, and what does that growth trajectory look like? So with all of that, to evaluate a practice, we look at a couple of different formulas. So historically, we would look at the gross sales times 1. This is an older method of doing it. So it is a possible starting point. You can look at how much that practice is generating and kind of get a basic number of what you might be able to expect. Now, it can be a little bit unreliable because looking at expenses, even, different practice types from large animal to small animal, they're going to have different expenses. So looking at those gross sales, the actual value of that practice would be different depending on what their payout on everything else is. A newer method and a more reliable one would be to use EBITDA. So that's earnings before interest, depreciation, all that. We're looking at 2.5 to 5 times EBITDA. Essentially, right now we're looking at the higher end of that. So typically, 5, sometimes 6 times. Reason being, corporates have inflated this. When we're talking about those corporate buyouts, as I mentioned, they're doing 16, 17, sometimes 20 times EBITDA, which that's blowing the cash flow out of the water, but they have the means to do that. So really we're looking at around 5 times. So looking at an example of a practice acquisition, say you're looking at a 3 DVM practice that grosses $1.5 million. Now this is just a basic list of expenses. Obviously you're going to have more when looking at an actual practice, but just for simplicity's sake and for this example, we're going to say that these encompass all of the expenses. So when you add all of those up, you get a net profit of $225. Now, one thing I want you to pay close attention to is that lease expense on here. Okay, so we're going to come back to that, but take a look at that and pay close attention to it. So when you look at the income approach of valuing the practice, that net profit of $225,000, if we take 5 times that, you're looking at a purchase price of $1.125 million. So your loan is going to include an SBA guarantee fee because with these SBA loans, they are backed by SBA and they expect a fee for that. Closing costs, working capital. So all in, you're looking at a $1.27 million loan. These acquisitions do require 10% down. Now, there's a couple of different ways you can arrive at that. Obviously, you can bring 10% cash to the table. The other option is actually to have the seller assist in that 10% down. So what they can do is create a seller note on full standby, which means that it gets paid back after the rest of the loan, but they can put a seller note in for up to half of that cash injection. So essentially they can do 5% and you can do 5%. So with that, we get a bank loan of $1.143 million. So if we're looking at it with a 6.5% interest rate on a 10-year term, now that 10-year term is based off of just purchasing the business. That is the term that the SBA will allow for this type of transaction. You're looking at a monthly payment of $12,978 and then annually about $155. So when you look at that profit and minus those expenses, so included in those expenses are your DVM salary. So if we add that back plus what your profit is, you're looking at an income right off the bat of $157,000. So, you know, almost double what you can expect from just the DVM salary. Now, I mentioned to keep an eye on that lease because that is going to come into play in this next example, and that is if you purchase the real estate. Now, talking about the real estate, people get a little bit scared because it does up that loan amount and they think, oh goodness, you know, I can't do that. It's going to increase my loan amount. It's going to, you know, I'm going to have so much more debt. But one thing to keep in mind is that real estate gives you a tangible asset. So it offsets a little bit of that debt and gives you something to use as collateral, number one. Number two, when we add real estate into these deals, it actually extends out that loan term up to 25 years. So depending on how much of the deal is made up by real estate, the majority is it can go out to 25 years. If it's just part of the deal, we can do what is called a blended term. In this case, with the real estate being $457,000, it gives us a blended term of 15 years. So extends that out. So essentially, if you look at the monthly payment, you're adding $457,000 to your loan, but realistically, you're adding about $1,000 more per month, so $12,000 annually to that debt, but getting that asset in return and extending out your payment timeline. So annually, you're looking at about $167,000 for debt repayment. What is also great about owning the real estate is you can actually pay rent back to yourself. You become essentially the landlord over this real estate and the business pays you rent. So your total income increases by the amount of that lease. So you're looking at an income of $217,000 all in when you add back that lease payment of $72,000. So essentially what we're saying is, you know, if you have the means, if you can get that cash injection, if you're able to buy the real estate, there are a ton of benefits in doing so. So when looking at an acquisition, some do's, you know, definitely understand the business that you're looking at and what differentiates it. What are you going to bring that's going to create a difference? What differentiators are already there that are making it successful? Know the current cash flow of the business and what you can expect from that. Leverage your experts, us as the bank, CPAs, people that are experts on the finance side of the veterinary field. So, you know, if we don't expect you to be an expert in lending, but, you know, you're an expert in you know, practicing in veterinary medicine. So let us do our part. Expect the unexpected. So, you know, rarely do these things go completely smooth. Be prepared for some unexpected things to turn up, you know, after your acquisition, everything. You definitely want to be prepared for the unexpected. And then, you know, budget and forecast that future performance. Know what you're going to need to get the practice to where you want. We want you to see that potential. We don't want you to pay for it. So definitely make sure that you're prepared for what is to come and what you're expecting out of the future performance. But as it says on the don't side of this, do not pay for that potential. And we also don't want you to limit yourself based on what you see. You know, if there is an area of opportunity, high cost of goods, or they're understaffed, overstaffed, whatever the case is, these are things that can be corrected. So don't immediately discount or, you know, count out a practice just because you're seeing, you know, some areas of opportunity. If it's something that can be addressed, Again, we want you to see it and have a plan of how you're going to get there and forecast it out for it. We don't want you to pay for it. Again, and we can't say this enough, do not get emotional. This is a business decision. There will be another business if the one you're looking at right now doesn't work out. Don't assume that bad trends can be easily fixed or that good ones will definitely continue. Again, we can work on correcting some, areas of opportunity and things, but that doesn't mean that it'll be easy. And don't just assume that by taking over a well-run business that it'll just be a well-oiled machine. There is work that will be involved in that. So, keep that in mind and just be aware of it as you move through these opportunities. Don't get into a bidding war, especially not with corporate. You don't want to keep bidding up, and up to the point where you're losing out on cash flow. Again, plenty of opportunity out there and you will find the right one. And then this might be one of the most important ones. Do not accept poor or outdated financials. We as the bank will not, and you shouldn't either, because you want to know what you're getting yourself into and you want to have the full picture of what you can expect when taking over one of these practices. So with First Financial Bank, why us and what do we do? So we are a national preferred SBA lender. And what that means is we can underwrite all of our loans in-house. This, can help make the process a little bit less tricky and, shorten the time frame somewhat. So we don't have to send things out to the SBA for approval. We can do most transactions in-house. Our division was actually built by a DVM, and myself and my counterpart in the West, Swanda, who was actually a small business owner. She's a pharmacist and owned a pharmacy. We have built our careers in this field as small business owners. I've worked in, the sales side of veterinary medicine. So we understand your needs and we understand this. We work solely in vet and pet care. So we know how to help you. And we match your bank to your business. We don't expect you to fit our model. We'll help to build a product that will fit yours. We're a fast growing vet lender and we provide an experience that you would want to give to your clients. So when you start working with us, you get Swanda and myself the whole way through. We do not pass you off. You have our cell phone numbers. You have direct access to us from the point that we start working with you and beyond. We service all of our own loans. So you'll never get passed off, have to wait on, a 1-800 number or what have you. You have that same experience as you would want your clients to have. What we do, acquisitions and partner buyouts, startups can be a little bit trickier. There are some different documents that we need beyond what we discussed here, but if that's the path you wish to take, we definitely do them. We can help you with that. We do loans for equipment or working capital, real estate purchases, expansions, which if we go back to that example with expansions, once you get to the point where you qualify for an expansion, that 10% down required, that required down payment is no longer there. The equity in your business counts as your down payment. So that is something to keep in mind when you purchase acquire your first vet practice, that once you're ready to expand, there are some additional benefits there. And then we do loans typically from $400,000 up to $5 million. So whatever your project needs are, we are there to help. And here's the team, myself and Swanda. Definitely reach out if you have any questions. We are always here to help, even if you just, you're early in the process, you don't have a practice in mind, but you just have some questions. It's never too early to start. So we're, more than happy to work with you and get the ball rolling. And again, thank you to the PromoVet team, and thank you everyone for joining us.